a gun pointed at her chest, a badge in her hand. He laughed at it, called it fake. 2 minutes later, he was the one in handcuffs. Special Agent Dana Whitfield had pulled onto the shoulder to take a work call. Routine, ordinary, the kind of moment nobody remembers, until it becomes the moment everything changes. But here's what nobody expected. The officer who approached her window that night wasn't checking a broken tail light. He was about to make the biggest mistake of his career, live, on his own dashcam, in front of his own supervisor's radio channel. Dana Whitfield was 36 years old, 11 years into a career with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, currently assigned to a joint task force investigating financial fraud, tied to a string of shell companies operating across 3 counties. She drove an unmarked gray sedan, kept her credentials in the driver's side door pocket out of habit, and had spent the better part of that Thursday reviewing wire transfer records in a downtown field office before heading home for the night. She pulled onto the shoulder of Route 9 just after 9:40 p.m. to take a call from her supervisor about a subpoena deadline, the kind of unremarkable pause drivers make 100 times a week without a second thought. She had her hazard lights on, her seatbelt still fastened, her phone propped against the dashboard. What she didn't know yet was that a patrol car from the county sheriff's office had already run her plate before pulling up behind her. Not because anything about the vehicle looked suspicious, but because the officer behind the wheel, a 12-year veteran named Deputy Wesley Kern, had developed a habit over the past year that his own department had quietly started documenting without telling him. Deputy Kern had a pattern. Internal Affairs had received 4 separate complaints in the past 14 months, each one describing a similar sequence. Unmarked vehicles pulled over on thin pretexts, drivers questioned aggressively, credentials dismissed with open skepticism, particularly when the driver was a black professional whose vehicle, clothing, or demeanor didn't match what Kern apparently expected to see. 3 of the 4 complaints had been quietly closed for insufficient evidence. The 4th was still technically under review, buried in a queue that moved slower than anyone wanted to admit. What Dana didn't know, sitting on that shoulder with her hazards blinking, was that she was about to become complaint number 5, except this time, the person on the other side of that badge carried federal law enforcement credentials of her own, a body-worn recording device standard issue to her task force, and 11 years of training that told her exactly how to handle a situation the moment it started going wrong. Kern approached her window with his hand already resting on his holster, flashlight sweeping across her dashboard, her bag, her hands. "Step out of the vehicle," he said, before she'd even rolled the window fully down. "Officer, I'm on a call with my supervisor," Dana said calmly, phone still in her hand. "I'm a federal agent. My credentials are in the door pocket. I'm going to reach for them slowly." What he didn't know was that the calm in her voice wasn't nerves. It was procedure. The exact protocol drilled into every agent for de-escalating a traffic stop that had, for reasons she couldn't yet see, gone tense far faster than the situation warranted. And then, it all changed. Kern's flashlight caught the leather badge case as Dana reached for it, slow and deliberate, exactly the way she'd been trained. But instead of relaxing, his hand moved from his holster strap to his weapon, drawing it in one motion, leveling it toward the open window. "Hands where I can see them. Now," Kern shouted, voice cracking with an adrenaline that had no real basis in the moment unfolding in front of him. Dana froze, both hands raised, the badge case still resting in her open palm. "Officer, look at what's in my hand," she said, her voice steady, despite the barrel now pointed at her chest. "It's my federal credentials. I am not reaching for anything else." Kern glanced down at the case, then laughed. An actual laugh, short and disbelieving, the sound of a man who had already decided what kind of person sits in that seat, on that road, at that hour. "That's not real," he said. "You think I haven't seen a fake badge before? Get out of the car." "My supervisor is still on this line," Dana said, lowering her phone slightly, but keeping her free hand raised. "He's about to hear everything that happens next. I'm going to set my phone on speaker and place it on the dashboard. I am not reaching for a weapon. I am reaching for my phone." She moved slowly, tapped the speaker icon, and set the phone down. Her supervisor's voice, clipped, alert, immediately understanding the gravity of what he was hearing, cut through the tense silence of the car. "This is Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Reyes," the voice said. "I am on an active call with Special Agent Dana Whitfield. Officer, I need your name, your badge number, and your department, right now." Kern's gun didn't lower. If anything, his grip tightened, the flashlight beam shaking slightly against the dashboard. "Who is this?" he said, less a question than a stall. "I am a supervisory special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation," Reyes said, his voice never rising, never breaking. "The woman you have a weapon pointed at is a federal agent under my direct supervision. If you do not lower your weapon and confirm her credentials in the next 10 seconds, this becomes a federal incident with your name attached to it permanently." For 3 full seconds, nobody on that dark stretch of Route 9 said a single word. Kern lowered the weapon, slowly, his flashlight now trembling more visibly than his gun had. "I need to verify that," he said, though the confidence had already drained completely out of his voice. "Verify it," Dana said, still calm, still steady, sliding the badge case forward through the window without breaking eye contact. "Run it through your own dispatch. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Financial Crimes Division. Badge numbers right there." What happened over the next 90 seconds unraveled faster than Kern could control. His own dispatcher, running the credential number through the appropriate federal channel, confirmed Dana Whitfield's identity within a minute, an unusually fast confirmation that told anyone listening the system had practically been holding its breath for this exact call. Simultaneously, Agent Reyes, still on speakerphone, informed Kern's own dispatcher that this incident, along with the 4 prior unresolved complaints already sitting in his department's internal affairs file, would now be forwarded directly to the FBI's Civil Rights Division for an independent review, a review no local department could quietly bury. A patrol supervisor arrived on scene within 11 minutes, took one look at the dashcam footage still rolling from Kern's own vehicle, and made a call that ended Deputy Wesley Kern's authority on the spot. "Surrender your weapon and your badge," the supervisor said, his voice flat, professional, and entirely without sympathy. "You're suspended, effective immediately, pending review." Kern's hands, the same hands that had drawn a weapon on a federal agent over a badge he'd refused to even glance at properly, now shook as he unclipped his own service weapon and handed it over. The cuffs that followed weren't for an arrest in the traditional sense, not yet, but for an unclap, official detainment, pending the Civil Rights Division's immediate involvement, a formality that still landed with the full symbolic weight of a man watching his career end in real time, on the same dark shoulder of road where he'd tried to end someone else's, night with a drawn weapon and a laugh. 2 minutes. That's how long it took from the moment Kern laughed at a real federal badge to the moment his own supervisor stripped him of his authority on the spot. Dana Whitfield sat in her car for a long moment, after the patrol supervisor drove Kern away, her hands finally trembling now that the adrenaline had nowhere left to go. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply picked her phone back up, still on speaker, and said quietly, "Marcus, I need a minute." "Take all the time you need," Agent Reyes said gently. "You did everything exactly right. I need you to hear that clearly." The Civil Rights Division's review, launched within 24 hours, moved with a speed that surprised even seasoned observers of these processes. Kern's dashcam footage, combined with his own body-worn camera audio, left no ambiguity about what had happened. A federal agent, credentials in hand, met with an unjustified weapon draw and open dismissal of legitimate identification. The review didn't stop at that single incident. Investigators pulled the 4 prior civilian complaints that had sat quietly unresolved for over a year, re-examining each one now, with the added weight of federal scrutiny attached. Within 6 weeks, Deputy Wesley Kern was formally terminated from the Sheriff's Department, his certification suspended, pending a state licensing board review that would ultimately revoke his ability to serve in law enforcement anywhere in the state. The department itself, facing the uncomfortable spotlight of a pattern now impossible to dismiss as isolated incidents, entered into a voluntary oversight agreement with federal monitors, a process that would reshape training protocols for every officer on that force. Dana didn't ask for any of that outcome when she picked up her phone that night. She'd simply followed the training that had kept her alive and composed through 11 years of far more dangerous situations than a routine highway stop should have ever become. But watching the department's own internal failures finally surface into daylight gave her something she hadn't expected to feel in the aftermath. A quiet, hard-won sense that the system, however slowly, however reluctantly, had actually worked the way it was supposed to. The meaning moment came 3 months later, when Dana was invited to speak, not as the subject of a viral video, a role she'd actively avoided, but as a guest instructor at a regional training session for newly certified officers on de-escalation and implicit bias. She stood in front of a room of nervous young recruits and told them plainly, the badge in my hand that night was never the problem. The problem was a system that let someone ignore 4 warnings before a 5th one finally forced it to look. She didn't ask the room for applause. She didn't need it. What she wanted, and what she got in the months that followed, was change that outlasted the headlines. New department policies, requiring supervisor notification any time a weapon was drawn, during a stop involving contested identification, expanded training on de-escalation, and a renewed, faster pipeline for civilian complaints that could no longer simply disappear into a slow-moving